Raven fans, Oriole fans, thank you very much for watching us here this week on the Rivalry Sports Podcast. For fans like me, like and subscribe to all of our social media platforms here. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get that Baltimore background up there. There we go. There I go. That's what happens when you go live. You get to see all that fun stuff. All right, thank you very much for joining us here. In the Rivalry Sports Podcast. A little late here, but better late than never. We're here to talk about the Ravens and the Orioles and all of our Baltimore teams. Terps basketball here. Big change. Terps, Billy Edwards transferring. So a lot happened this week. Free agency. So we're going to talk a lot about that here on our podcast. First of all, Genesis Notary Services /Facebook.com is our website. So definitely check it out if you are looking for anything in the Shenandoah Valley area as far as the notary business, as far as things like that. If you want us to stamp your documents with care, we will be happy to do that. Stamp your documents all throughout the Shenandoah Valley. Happy to go ahead and square that away for you. RaverySports.company.site is the website. Definitely you can go on whenever you go on to websites. Google, you just go ahead and put in RaverySports.company.site. All of our merchandise, Ravens jerseys, Orioles jerseys, hats, etc., will all be on the site there as well. C. Charles Harris, we are LegalShield.com. Anybody who is looking for any legal services that you can save some money on, it's great value. Let me tell you, lawyers are very, very expensive. I don't care what anybody says, just to speak to a lawyer. Don't just make fun. But anybody you speak to a lawyer, it's very, very expensive. But with the Legal Shield, you can save a lot of money each month. Small monthly fee to give you that peace of mind to have that legal protection for you and your family there as well. So definitely check that out. And Best of 2024 is coming up on New Year's Eve. We're going to recap the Best of Baltimore in 2024 on New Year's Eve. So definitely check that out as well. Okay. Ladies and germs, we got a football game to talk about. This was barely a football game this Sunday that happened. Steelers week, which is much more exciting than what we saw on Sunday here. But we're going to talk about the Giants first, since we saw it. So Giants and the Ravens last Sunday were in the Meadowlands, 35-14. This was all Ravens all the time in this one. There was pretty much no resistance from the Giants. As much as I'm the Ravens guy and I'm supposed to be talking about how good the Ravens looked, how good Lamar looked, et cetera, all that's fine. The Giants just look bad. I mean, that didn't even look like an NFL team on Sunday. I mean, that looked like, XFL or UFL or high school or something going against an NFL team. That's how bad the Giants looked in that football game on Sunday. I mean, it was that pathetic. So let's go ahead and talk about it though. The Ravens were good, obviously. I mean, they won by 35-14. So that's always all good when that happens. So what did it look like? Lamar Jackson, another Jackson 5. Not talking about Tito and Jermaine. We call that Jackson 5 when Lamar has 5 touchdown passes in this game, which he did again. Guys were wide open. This was about as good as I've seen receivers look for the Ravens during the course of a season. I mean, really playing well down the stretch, really actually getting good play from them all season long. Zay Flowers is probably the best receiver that we've had here in the last 7 or 8 years, really since Steve Smith retired. That's how good Zay Flowers is. So Zay Flowers was terrific in this game. I thought Rashard Bateman had some great catches. Nelson Aguilar had a fantastic catch in this one. So I thought the receiving core, not just Mark Andrews and company, the whole receiving core, I thought was really, really good in this game here this week. Derrick Henry, Some saying he's slowing down. I don't know about that. Derrick Henry, 14 for 67 yards per, down a bit compared to where he started as well. I'm not worried about Derrick Henry. I mean, it's not. It's a little bit of a concern, but it's. People are saying that maybe because he's a 30-year-old, which is some concern that he's wearing down. But Derrick Henry has been fantastic all year long. So good job by Derrick Henry. I think they are. It also could be they're rationing him as well for the stretch run. It could be that they're not going as hard, because we still have playoff games that are coming up probably, et cetera. So you do have to go ahead and ration him a little bit. But the talk of we're so worried about him and his energy and all that, I'm just not as worried about Derrick Henry as some of you are. This was probably the best day I've seen in a pro career for Rashard Bateman on Sunday. 2 terrific catches for Bateman, I thought, in the end zone. Lamar found him. I think Bateman just got to be more consistent as a number one receiver. That's the only thing missing like that. He runs great routes. He's a great route runner. He moves very well. I got really no problem with Bateman. The way he plays, just got to keep him healthy on the field, which he's been doing. At times, he does seem to get lost, but he was terrific on Sunday. Again, but no resistance really from the Giants at all in this one. I mean, they didn't put up anything as far of a fight statistically, but good stuff about Rashard Bateman. But I think the whole receiving core was terrific in this one. Kyle Hamilton. Oh, that's wrong. Great. Kyle Hamilton had 6 tackles in this one. So Kyle was really good, I think, on Sunday. This is your guy. I think him and Matabuke are kind of the linchpin guys along with Roquan Smith. Kyle, I think, looks much more comfortable with moving Darius Washington into the starting lineup. I think without Marcus Williams there, who didn't play at all, who was benched, they got rid of Eddie Jackson as far as that goes. But Kyle Hamilton, I thought, was really good. Again, Giants offense just nothing on Sunday as well. What did the Giants offense do? Man. Tim Boyle came in the game, right? So Tim Boyle was Tommy DeVito went out of the game with an injury. I think it was a concussion that he had. So the backup quarterback came in, Tim Boyle. I think they're down to their 4th quarterback as well. Stats didn't look super terrible, in my opinion. I mean, they looked okay-ish relatively, but that guy's not an NFL quarterback, Tim Boyle. At best, he's, a career backup, I think. But, Tim Boyle is just not the guy to go ahead and lead you anywhere. But this is what the Giants are left with as well. Probably got the stat up there. 12 for 24, 1 TD, 1 INT. Nothing there for that. They had pretty much no run game as well. Ravens really stopped the run. They've been doing well enough with that pretty much all season long, stopping the run game, not getting a lot of push up front. I thought the defensive line was really good. Michael Pierce looked really good on Sunday. 10 for 31 was Tracy in this one. Tyrone Tracy. Get that up there. 10 for 31, Tyrone Tracy. Again, not much on the ground, I thought, as well, if anything. The one guy who did show me a lot as far as the Giants was Malik Neighbors. They were feeding him the ball, and they should. He's an NFL number 1 receiver. There's no question about it. He was easy, the best player on their offense as well. 10 receptions, 82 yards for Malik Neighbors. I thought he was really, really good on Sunday as well. I thought, like, even with the double coverage he was getting for the most part, where the Ravens were pretty much double covering him a lot, they basically couldn't really handle. The Ravens had a tough day. Brandon Stevens is really scuffling at times, man. Just his coverage is always good, but he can't find the ball. That's the thing. I definitely think Marlon should have been on him more as well in this one. So definitely keep that in mind. Brian Burns, I think, did have a sack. I think he was the best player without Dexter Lawrence in there as well. I thought the Ravens offense was totally dominant. They were totally non-existent on the other side. Giants, just a huge talent deficit in this one. No chance for the Giants to really have any resistance against the Baltimore Ravens. 35-14. Ravens, this is just what the doctor ordered. Come back off of a bye, late bye. This is exactly what John Harbaugh and the fans would have wanted. Game like this where they go ahead and win. And the Giants are just on the clock. Sorry, Giants fans. A lot of work to be done. I don't know if Dayball is going to be there or not. Getting my drink. I don't know if Dayball is going to be there or not. I think he might be a good coach, but big talent deficit. Giants, obviously the only team in the NFC on the road to beat the Ravens. So there you go. And now it's Steelers week. So we got a game Saturday on Fox, not on Sunday. Saturday afternoon, 4:30, M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens and the Steelers. This is for all the marbles, as they say in the old days. First place in the AFC North. The Ravens win. They are in a first place tie with the Steelers. The Steelers pretty much can clinch the division, I think, with a win. They would effectively be 3 games ahead of the Ravens with record-wise, and with the tiebreaker, Ravens would not be winning the division. Ravens still would be behind the Steelers even with a win, but they would be in an absolute tie in the first place. The Steelers would have to lose one of the last 2 games, and the Ravens have to finish ahead of them. That would be much more likely, because especially with the Steelers playing the Chiefs next week. So let's take a look at the Ravens. Lamar Jackson. I think I don't know where this stuff is coming from that Josh Allen is way ahead of Lamar Jackson in the MVP voting. To me, that doesn't make any sense. I think the only thing you can really say is the record of the Bills a little bit better than the Ravens. I'll hear that argument, but all the stats are pointing in Lamar Jackson's stat. I think definitely, to me, I think the MVP race, it is going to matter the last 2 weeks. I think last year Lamar won it on that Monday night game on Christmas night. So I think this game this year, these last 2 weeks are going to determine it here as well. But I don't think the race is over by any stretch. Bills and Ravens still have more work to do. Saquon, I think, is still in it. Derrick Henry, not as much at this point. But Derrick Henry has been terrific this season. So you're saying he's wearing down, right? 1,500 yards, 13 TDs. Fantastic for Derrick Henry. I think it's been a phenomenal signing. Not so worried a little bit about the carries, but is he wearing down? I don't think so. I think I'm going to give a guy like this, a Hall of Fame, potential future Hall of Famer, a little more credit than that he's going to be fine going down the stretch here. I think Henry is going to be key in this game. Why? The Ravens have trouble. Lamar's had trouble against the Steelers. What can Lamar do better than anyone else against anybody? Get the edge. So he has trouble getting the edge. So that means Derrick Henry is going to be more important. They're going to run the ball more. They're going to do a little bit more running the football. That is going to be imperative in this one. Zay Flowers. 66 receptions, 916. He may break over that 1,000-yard barrier this Saturday, rather. I was going to say it, this Saturday. I think this is a favorable matchup against the Steelers corners as well. I think Joey Porter has been kind of decent this year, kind of up and down. Flowers and Bateman, I think, is a good matchup against the Steelers corners. And this one, offensively, the Ravens receivers, I think this is the best receiver group I've seen the Ravens have in total in many years. This might be the best group they've ever had as far as receiver production since the 96 season, the first initial year. Everybody forgets the 96 season, where they had – the reason why we had such a good defense, when we got the franchise in 96, we had productive offense. Testaverde, Michael Jackson, Derek Alexander – on offense. So, hey, man, we need to help these guys on defense. The defense was bad. And the rest is history. Became the greatest defense of all time. This offensive group is actually playing well. Ravens defense, way better the last few weeks. Much more solid the last few weeks. Kyle Van Noy, 9 sacks as well. Love Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy, I'm sure John Harbaugh is going to have nothing but good things to say about Kyle Van Noy. Set the edge. That's what he does well. He gets sacks, but he goes ahead. He contains the edge. Guys can't get outside of him as well. Stops the run well. Does a lot of things well on the outside. Kyle Van Noy, 9 sacks over the season. Oweh, I think, is at about 8. Matabuke, about 6.5. I think he's at 5. A lot of double teams Matabuke is getting. The biggest thing, the pass defense has gotten much better. Pass rush has been solid, not spectacular, all season. Russell Wilson really revitalized the Steelers offense this season when they made the change for Justin Fields. A little bit controversial. A lot of people didn't question it, but it's really worked. I think the Steelers offense is very pedestrian, in my opinion. There's not a lot of great dynamics in the offense. Russell is giving him at least the deep ball. That's helping, so I think that's a good thing. So Russell is not going ahead and doing a whole lot. He's going ahead and getting the deep ball there. Sorry about that. So Russell getting the deep ball as well. I think it's definitely an upgrade over Justin Fields. I don't think their offense is spectacular in any form. I'm not a fan of Najee Harris. He can run the ball with power. I think that's what he does. I think had this been football in the 80s, everybody was saying how great Najee Harris is because he can run the ball with power. He can run the ball up the middle. He can run over people. He does that very well. He doesn't really catch the ball out of the backfield well. I'm not a big Najee Harris guy in any sense. I think like Jerome Warren, I think they have a good tandem as well. But I think they do need to run the football. I think that's kind of why I feel their offense is kind of pedestrian. I'm not in love with their running attack there. George Pickens, I think, is their best offensive player. Very dynamic. Bit of a head case, giving a lot of Steelers fans heartache. Sometimes he complains about touches. That's common of a wide receiver. Complain about touches. We'll get to Deontay Johnson, of course, in a second. But complain about touches, tremendous speed and route running. Guys I've seen him like the last couple of years. Guys have a hard time staying with George Pickens on offense. Pickens, I think, is an outstanding wide receiver for them. I think he's been aided a lot by having Russell throwing the deep ball. This is the guy I think that's benefited the most from the quarterback change from Justin Fields. TJ Watt, don't know if he's going to play. He's probably going to try and play through an ankle injury as well. Twisted his ankle. This defense looks much different without Watt and his dominance on the field. So TJ Watt, I think, is so dominant as well. It'll be interesting to see how he looks. We know how great he is. 11.5 sacks. He gets triple teamed a lot. So definitely we will see how that goes as well. Who gets the X in this one? X factor. I already talked about Derrick Henry. Some people saying you're wearing down. Some people saying that not the same as well. They're definitely going to need to run with power with the Steelers' ability to go ahead and cover those edges, those rush lanes for Lamar, so he can't get all those wide open looks. And they're very good at staying in the zone and staying in the lanes. So a good way to combat that is to use Derrick Henry as well. I think there is good, favorable matchup for the Ravens running on the left side. As we know, right side has been having problems all season long. Brandon Stevens. I don't want to see too much of him on George Pickens. I don't know why they seem to be not putting Marlon, and maybe somebody correct me. They seem to not be putting Marlon one-on-one on the best receiver a lot. I'm noticing that a lot. They're using Stevens more on whoever the best receiver. They could be using the whole Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was famous for that. I'm going to put my best receiver on the number 2 guy, and I'm going to put my best corner on the number 2 guy, and then just run coverage to the other side, and then do double coverage on the other side. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I think teams are playing too much zone anyway in the league. Man-to-man, I think the Ravens do much better with man-to-man, so we will see that. But Stevens, they're going to be going straight for him. I saw it definitely in the last game. Even the Giants, they were definitely attacking Brandon Stevens. I think the Ravens actually take this game. Steelers are a bit banged up. They're actually, we don't know if they're going to have TJ Watt in this game at all. We don't know about a couple of guys for them. I don't think the Ravens going to absolutely have to play with the sense of urgency in this one. So just looking at it now, Watt is off the injury report. He is going to play as well. Pickens might not play with the hamstring there, so he didn't practice. So we're seeing that, looking at that now. Dante Jackson, Deshaun Elliott, doubtful. Deshaunte Jackson, questionable. Deshaun Elliott. So we'll see. A little banged up. It's getting late in the season. We will see what's going on here. Ravens, I think, win the game pretty handily. I think they have the superior offense and should beat the Squealers. There you go. All right. So let's move on here. And let's talk a little bit about the Big Five. There is one of these tonight here, so I want to talk about that. But good slate of games in the NFL. We wanted to go over that here. Big five biggest games on the NFL schedule that are not Ravens games. So we definitely wanted to go over that as well. So we wanted to go ahead and check that out. 5 games last week. Did I pull it up? Let me go ahead and pull up the Big 5 here. So the 5 games last week on the Big 5 as well. Packers were very decisive. Packers, I've been kind of saying all year long, they beat Seattle 30-13. I've been kind of saying the Packers are a good playoff team, but not a Super Bowl team. They look like a Super Bowl team. They have everything you need. I love their receivers, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. The defense is getting better and better. They are running the ball. Jordan Love's throwing some picks, but they are figuring it out. The Eagles, I don't know why everybody hates Sirianni. I don't know why. He's got a good record, convincing win over the Squealers last week, 27-13. This is kind of what I think is going to happen to the Squealers going forward. They don't have offense enough dynamic. I think the Eagles have, the most talent in the league. Hurts, A.J. Brown, I don't know what's going on, but Saquon is in the MVP category. The offensive line is first rate. The young defensive players are coming along as well. Red flag on both the Bills and the Lions. Bills, I think the offense, is, if it's not the Ravens, it's the Bills, the best offense in the league. I think they are top shelf. Allen, I think, is absolutely worthy of MVP consideration. as well. Goff is as well. Injuries are piling up for Detroit. Their defense has some issues. They've given up points now as well. Buffalo's defense has some issues. 40 points now, 2 weeks in a row here at the end of the season. So they got off to a decent enough start, but you're kind of like fading a little bit down the stretch here as well. So definitely a concern about that. Rams, I'm sorry, not that one. Oh, yeah. Broncos and the Colts. Colts, I think it's over. They're not going to the playoffs. I don't know if Richardson's the guy. I think they definitely made a mistake playing Flacco, putting Richardson back in and not leaving Flacco in. Broncos, I think, are a playoff team. They're solid. They're definitely well coached. They're not a lot of household names there, but they're definitely doing what they have to do to go ahead and get in. And I did not see the Bucs rolling the Chargers the way they did. That surprised me. That was so convincing that they rolled them up like that. All right, what's going on here in a few minutes? Broncos and the Chargers. So this is big here for playoff positioning and all that. Both of these teams, I think, are going to get in the playoffs. I don't think there's any question about it. I think the Broncos maybe have the best rookie quarterback all season, Bo Nix, Baby Breeze. He's playing it. I can see it every time I see him. I don't know if he'll ever be as good of a career as Drew Brees. Maybe that's overstating it, but it's not overstating it saying he has a good rookie year. Look, simplifying it. Now they're taking more chances. Now they're going downfield, running the ball. He's developing right before us as well. Chargers, I think, got rolled last week. I think they win this game. I just think they have a better team overall. They've had some injuries. I think McConkey didn't play, or I think maybe he got hurt. I think McConkey got injured. Yeah, McConkey may not play this week. Injury status still up in the air, battling that shoulder. But I like the Chargers. I think the Chargers have a better team as well. Two outstanding coaching jobs here as well. Both of these teams, they're not going to win the division, obviously, but this is definitely big for positioning. Before the Ravens game, you'll see the Texans and the Chefs in this one. Texans, I think, they've kind of stumbled to the finish, in my opinion. I think CJ Stroud, I think, was kind of definitely has hit the sophomore slump a bit with him. He hasn't had like a 300-yard game since like September. Been a minute. 17 TDs, 9 interceptions, not bad. I think their defense has not been as good outside of Will Anderson as they had hoped as well. The Chefs, Mahomes should play, I think. So I think like he wasn't on the injury report. He was practicing. Mahomes is a pretty tough guy. He's played through some tough injuries, so he should play in this one. Look, the record is what the record is. You could say whatever you want about what it looks like. They're going to be 13-1. They win this game, I think. So they are really rolling. However, they're getting it done. They're definitely good in these close games. This will be tight. I think this will be another tight Chiefs win. I think there'll be another tight Chiefs win. I think the Texans, are they ready to? You almost hate to keep saying it, but are they ready to win a game like this in Kansas City? You figure the Chiefs are due to lose one, but they keep pulling these games out close like that. The Vikings and the Seahawks. I think Sam Darnold has maybe played his way into an extension, even despite the fact that they have signed the name's escaping me. The Michigan, McCarthy, right? I'm sorry. So McCarthy, they went ahead and signed him. Sam Darnold, 29 touchdowns to 11 picks. He's been fantastic for them. I think the Vikings are the best team, maybe either that or Philly in the NFC. I really do. Seattle's been great lately. But the Vikings they're another team. We keep talking about the Chefs winning these close games. Vikings too have had a knack for it all season long. I don't think they win this one. I really like the Seahawks at home. That's kind of passe to some people. Say, well, you just pick, but they actually win a lot of these games at home. I like the Seahawks at home. Against the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, the season he's had it's been fantastic. I think he's been good every week, but I think they are kind of due to lose one. I think this might be a bit much going into Seattle and winning this one here as well. Big test for the Commanders. Commanders, I think, are going to get into the playoffs in the NFC. I think a lot of the playoff teams are set. I think we know. I think we got Tampa and Atlanta fighting for the playoff spot in the NFC, fighting for the division. What's the matter? You don't feel well? Go lay down. You got Tampa and sorry about that. So you got Tampa and Atlanta fighting for the playoff spot in the NFC. But you got the Eagles and the Commanders. And this one, the Commanders, I think, are in the playoffs. The Eagles, I think, are the best team in the NFC, if not the NFL so far. I don't think the Commanders have a shot at this one. I think the Eagles are really focused. They're really playing well. I think this is a historic run game we're seeing from the Eagles. Saquon's having an all-time year. Hurts has got, 12 touchdowns. Their offensive line is first rate. The Commanders, I think, have some pieces there, but they're not the same level as the Eagles. I think this is a little bit of a step up in class, even though it's at home. It's a division game. I don't think the Commanders get past them as well. So that is there. One more as well. Dolphins and the Niners here. And this one. I think it's kind of over for the Niners. I don't think they get into the playoffs. I'm not sure the Dolphins get in. I know for sure the loser doesn't get in. I don't think either one of these teams, if they lose, if they get in. I think I think there's a small shot for the Niners to get in. I do think they are going to be motivated and win this game as well. But I think this is an elimination for whoever loses. I like the Niners in this one to actually pull it out as well, despite all their injuries. There you go. All right. Big five. So the five. All right. So enjoy all the games with that. The five biggest games on the schedule that are not Raven games. All right. We're going to go over this a little bit here on this weekend. We're going to have our first ever college football playoff weekend. So we're going to have 4 college football playoff games here on Saturday as well on, I think it's Friday and Saturday. So we're going to have Tennessee going against Ohio State, Clemson and Texas, Indiana against Notre Dame, SMU, winners of the ACC, against Penn State as well. The biggest mismatch, I think, is the 12-5. I think Texas easy over Clemson. Clemson, I thought, showed a lot of heart actually getting to the ACC final, but I think they get rolled pretty good as well. Interesting to see in that Texas game if we get Arch Manning at all. I'm excited about that as well. Ewers has kind of struggled a bit down to the stretch, so we'll see. Interesting to see if we can get Arch Manning in that one. Ohio State and Tennessee, I don't think there's any question that Ohio State beats the brakes off of Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, is definitely overrated. They're not at the same level as Ohio State. I think Ohio State, they have everything really but a great quarterback. I think Will Howard's a decent quarterback, but their wide receiver first round talent at wide receiver, first round talent at running back, first round talent on the line, first round talent on defense. I definitely think they definitely can win easy as well. Penn State and SMU, I think, is going to be a little closer than people think because SMU is really good. I think the games in Happy Valley, that should help them a lot. I like Penn State in that one. Also, to Indiana, I think beats Notre Dame. I think Indiana is really good. Indiana, I thought their margin of victory was big in a lot of their games. So I definitely think Indiana wins that as well. So definitely we're going to get our first college football playoff weekend. It will be pretty cool to actually have that there as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. Didn't go my way. Black Knights Army lose to Navy 31-13. I thought this was easy, the worst game that the Middies played, that the Army played all season as well. Bryson Daly, I thought, really struggled. 7 for 16, 65 yards. There you go. 19 carries for 52. He's had 29 touchdowns rushing. Didn't throw the ball well as well. They were really waiting for him set up. Kenya Udo has actually entered the transfer portal right after the game. 14 carries, 53 yards. Not enough. Not enough. I think that kind of says it, sums it up there. Hayden Reed, 3 receptions, 29 yards as well. Max D'Amico for the Army, 6 tackles. I think probably the best defensive player. I think probably the guy, if there is a guy going to the NFL as well. Decent enough, but I could tell you this. The reason why the Middies won this game was Blake Horvath was fantastic. Just fantastic on the ground, especially. 2 TDs in the air, 4 for 9, 107. That includes 2 TD passes, and that's 25 carries, 204. He was the man-child on the field. Definitely the best player on the field on both sides, and it wasn't even close. Definitely that's the reason they won. Good throws in this game as well. Max Horvath, threw the ball. Alex Teska, 8 carries for 24 yards. He was the leading rusher that was not the QB with 25 carries as well. And Eli Heidenreich. Used to be a wrestler called Heidenreich. Heidenreich used to do that. Yeah, so Heidenreich, I was excited to see that. Tremendous touchdown catch in this one. 1 reception for 52 yards. I thought it was fantastic. Throw by Horvath and catch. He won. Colin Ramos, it's impressive. It's impressive. He had 7 tackles. Definitely a leader on the field. That's what I noticed with him. A lot of these guys on defense, especially the better players usually on these teams are on offense and usually see toughness and physicality on defense. But I thought Navy, this wasn't close. I don't think the score even did it justice, and the score is pretty convincing. 31-13, the Middies over the Black Knights. I thought Army played the worst possible game in the worst possible spotlight, 31-13. Shout out to both teams as well, obviously. Thank you for everything you're doing for all of us with your military service. We appreciate it as Americans, as citizens. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. The game, I think, next season is going to be in Baltimore. So get ready. By the way, tickets are way more expensive than I thought they were as well. I think it's like a $200, $300. I mean, I kind of thought I'd go to a game, but my goodness, it is very, very expensive. But yes, the Army-Navy game 2025 is going to be in Baltimore, back in New York 2026, Philadelphia 2027. So they're not just in Philadelphia all the time. They're kind of moving it around. So I think that is very good as well. All right. Let's talk a little Maryland basketball as well. Not a lot of games as well. But Maryland actually did win their last game. Real quick on the Terps, Terps actually won their last game against St. Francis, 111-57 as well. Excellent night again for guess who? Derek Queen, 15 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He was fantastic. Seton Miguel, I thought was good too. I think their starting 5 is very strong. Very, very good. Julian Reese, Derek Queen, Jacob Gillespie, Rodney Rice, and Seton Miguel. They've all had 20-point games, each of them, all season long. The shooting is actually fantastic. They're just running it up against a weaker competition. So that's about over with now. So now they're going to be playing in the Big Ten schedule pretty soon here. They have a game against Syracuse, game against UMES. And then I think at the beginning of January, they're going to start against Washington. So very excited about Terps. Terps is a lot to be excited about the way they've played. So shout out to the Terps actually getting it done. Only the one game, I think here in December, colleges are taking finals. So guys aren't playing a lot of games. They kind of, a lot of schools take that week off, let guys take their finals and everything, et cetera. So they were back at it here the other night. All right. We're going to talk baseball here in a second. Real quick about Deontay Johnson. Have a few seconds here. I did want to talk about what's going on with Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is effectively suspended from the Ravens, dismissed from team activities, not allowed to go with the team. They use the word, mutually agreed. Okay. They've mutually agreed that he's not going to be there. I'm of the mind, and I know a lot of fans disagree, go ahead and just let him go. You keep talking to me in the chat and all that stuff and the message boards about the comp pick and all that stuff. I understand all that, but put him on the field to get the comp pick, right? And one guy said, well, he took his medicine. He shouldn't be playing. Okay, if he shouldn't be playing, go ahead and cut him. Cut Deontay Johnson. If you don't want him on the team, go ahead and cut him. Go ahead and cut him. They're not cutting him this week. I know why. They're never going to say this, but they're playing the Steelers this week. That's his former team. They don't want the Steelers to pick him up. And that just tells you right there, like how valuable a guy can be. Obviously, what he did was wrong. I don't buy it. And I'm fine with him not playing as well. But I'm just not – I kind of just am not with this, just letting him sit in limbo and all that. I don't think, it's clear you don't want him there, so don't let him be there. All right. So a lot of stuff went on in baseball. Hot stove still happening. Still no word on Burns here. We're still happening there. Cody Bellinger signed with the Yankees, traded Kyle Tucker. He's going to get a big contract with the Cubbies. So Orioles did sign a Japanese pitcher to put in the rotation. But this week we're a little deeper in the offseason here. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the greatest players in baseball history, some of the greatest all-time greats ever. So, like last year, we talked about some of the greatest players in Oriole history. So this year, we're going to talk about some of the greatest players ever. All right? Now, I think the Hall of Fame is kind of silly right now, but because they're leaving so many great players out. Barry Bonds not in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose not in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens not in the Hall of Fame. A-Rod not in the Hall of Fame, etc. So let's talk about this a little bit. So we're going to go back and who are put me in cold. I'm ready to play. So who are some of the greatest players of all time, some of the best infielders of all time, and manager. We're going to talk about that. So who are some of the best ever? So baseball is harder than football because we're talking about baseball started in the 1900s. So obviously some of these guys, like we started talking about Jackie Robinson and stuff, like I obviously didn't see him play or whatever. But just looking at the stats and the data, obviously, you see some of the greatest to ever play. All right, so let's talk about baseball. Some of the greatest catchers of all time. Lots of Orioles on the list as well. Not all, but it's the Orioles. Number 5, I think Carlton Fisk for the White Sox. Pudge. Collins was a great player. Played a lot of years for the Red Sox as well. Played a long time. Picture longevity. Played to his 40s. Good power hitting catcher. Getting power hitting catchers is not something that happens a lot. He was good defensively, certainly in his prime, but really played a long time. Was a staple of the position in the 70s and 80s. So I definitely think Collins is number 5. Mike Piazza, the Italian. I think not much defensively, but a great offensive player. I think if you didn't have the defense, I think he'd be higher than this. But he wasn't good defensively, but he was terrific offensively. Consistently the best Mets offensive player at the catcher position for many years. Hit about 30 home runs on average for many years. I thought he was fantastic. Mike Piazza, I have him at 4. Yogi Berra, 3. He was a great manager as well. I think definitely he almost made the manager's list. But Yogi Berra, I think the reason why they made him a manager because he was one of the greatest catchers of all time. The era of Yankees when he's played was so dominant. The Yankees of the 50s and the 60s, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, etc. And Yogi Berra was the catcher for that. I definitely have him at 3. Pudge Rodriguez, Ivan Rodriguez. I think this guy was the complete package as catcher. He didn't have massive power numbers all the time. But I think like defensively, Pudge, just to watch him throw runners out was just fantastic. Just to watch him. Most guys, you have to stand up behind the plate and throw it. Pudge would consistently be on his knees and throw a guy out. So Pudge, I think, was fantastic, but he wasn't better than, I think, one of my inspirations for baseball in general, Johnny Bench, Cincinnati Reds. Every Saturday, there was a little 6-year-old kid in Reisterstown watching the baseball bunch, the Johnny Bench's baseball bunch, teaching little kids how to play. He helped teach me how to play. So Johnny Bench. And not just because of that, I think the Big Red Machine was one of the greatest dynasties. And Bench, I think, was an outstanding defensive catcher as well, as long as with his offense. So as well. First base. Let's go. Jim Thome. Thome, I think, is one of the most underrated players of all time. I think Thome, I think, was so dominant for many years with so many teams. Played well. I think of him more as an Indians player, but he played with the White Sox, played with the Phillies. Instant 30 and 100. I think like he was a guy, though, playing on teams with Manny Ramirez and others. So he kind of got overlooked, not as outgoing. But you look at the numbers, and Thome really was a killer. Mark McGwire, I think, is one of the greatest home run hitters of all time. Him and Jose Canseco in their prime were just unbelievable. 49 home runs as a rookie, had a 70 home run season. I don't know what he was on. I don't know. Some people might debate it, but McGwire was just a thunder. Some guys just have massive power. Mark McGwire had massive power. Pete Rose, I think, is the greatest contact hitter, I think, in the history of the MLB. Probably can put him at first base. Pete Rose was a hit machine. 41, 91 as far as hits, the most hits ever in Major League history. Great Pete Rose. I think there was never a better hitter than Pete Rose as far as contact. No such thing. Not Wade Boggs, not anyone. I mean, he was fantastic. Bat the ball. There wasn't anybody. The Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. Cal Ripken's record of the greatest Iron Man of all time broke by Lou Gehrig. Gehrig was on those dominant Yankee teams in the early 50s and 60s, etc. Played with had Babe Ruth hitting behind him. Right, had outperformed Babe Ruth, a great offensive player. Lou Gehrig, I think a lot of people would have him one, but Pujols was on another planet. Pujols, I think, was the greatest hitter, I think, in the modern day as far as first base. One of the best ones I ever saw. Pujols, I think, for about 16, 17 years was great. Even in the later years where people were complaining about his production, he was still getting 20-plus home runs a year, even in his 40s. So that's how good Albert Pujols was. Second base, Jeff Kent, I think, was one of the most underrated players to ever play. Outstanding power hitter. Jeff Kent was great offensive player. I think his offense is so underrated. Not a great defender. He almost looked too big for second base at times, even though he wasn't. He was a decent defender, but he always looked like he could have been playing a right field or whatever, but he played a lot of his career at second base. I think definitely, top 5 of all time on offense. A former Oriole, but I have him as a Blue Jay, Robbie Alomar. Alomar, I think, was a fantastic defender. I think that Alomar, I thought the range he showed defensively was terrific. Good offensive player as well. Not massive power like McGuire or anything like that, but definitely a guy who would hit 300 consistently, hit 20 plus home runs. Definitely for years. The first guy you thought about a good offensive second baseman was Robbie Alomar. The late Eddie Collins for those great White Sox teams. The White Sox were good back in the early century for a while. Like, a lot of people don't realize they kind of lost with the Yankee dominance. But Eddie Collins, you look at the stats right there, got to definitely put him right there. Number 2, you look at the stats, he's one of the better offensive stat-wise, you can put him even higher. But I can't put him higher than Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was a great Sunday night announcer. Loved to listen to Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was the standard for so many years. I put a guy on a list like this when you're the best player for so many years. Joe Morgan was definitely that. Definitely for those Reds teams. You talk about Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, that great Red machine. Absolutely one of the greatest players of all time. But definitely Roger Hornsby. Definitely. Look, trading the baseball cards is worth a lot. But definitely he is one of the greatest ever. I think stat-wise, there's no question about it. Leading in almost every statistical category at second base. Rogers Hornsby for the St. Louis Cardinals. Third base, there's an Oriole, Brooks Robinson at third base. I think Brooks, is there because he's the greatest defender ever. More gold gloves than anybody, 16 gold gloves, 20 plus years as an Oriole, hit 20 home runs, I think 5-6 times. I think he was definitely the linchpin. You talk about great offenses. You talk about Brooks defenses, but that offensive lineup, the Robinson brothers, Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, and Boog Powell was definitely a staple why the Orioles had so much success from the 60s all the way up until the early 80s. Adrian Beltre, you're not gonna hear as much about him. Didn't have the postseason success. That's the only reason he didn't hire. But you look at the stats, and it kind of like Tony kind of sneaks up on you. How many times I'm seeing 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, great batting average. Defensively, he was okay. And you don't know for his defense, but he was a solid defender. But Beltre, I think, definitely goes top 4. George Brett. I remember George Brett with the pine tar, knocking somebody's head off with the Yankees. He was the reason why the Royals were good so many years in the 80s. Kind of like Alomar in a sense. Had some power, but he hit for average extremely well. Hit for average extremely well. I think George Brett was fantastic for many years with the Royals. Chipper Jones, I think, I almost put him 1, but I had him at 2. Chipper Jones, I think, was the engine for the Braves run in the 90s and 2000s. You could call it the closest thing to a dynasty that they ever had. The constant was Chipper Jones that they had. Excellent at third base all those years. Definitely hit from massive power as well, but not as good as Michael Jack Schmidt for the Phillies. Phillies, I don't think there's ever a tougher place to play in the world than Philly. And you hardly ever say anything bad about Mike Smith. Mike Smith was, for Philly standards at least, Mike Smith, I think, was the greatest third baseman of all time. Hit for tremendous power, dominant as well. I don't think it's close. Mike Smith was tremendous there as well. 2 more. Shortstop, the Wizard of Oz, Ozzie Smith. At 5, yes, he's here for defense. I don't think it's close. I don't think not only is he the best defensive shortstop of all time, I can't think of a better defensive player maybe at any position than Ozzie Smith ever was. I mean, just hand him the Gold Glove before the season even starts. He would flip out on the field every season. Tremendous athlete, tremendous speed. I think Ozzie, was one of the greatest players defensively I ever saw. Good offensive player. I thought he's not in the Hall of Fame he's in the Hall of Fame because of defense, but he was a good leadoff hitter in his time, great speed, got a lot of steals. I thought Ozzie was there. I hate putting Derek Jeter here because I just couldn't. It's like me putting Heinz for. But Derek Jeter, I think there may never have been a better player in the playoffs than Derek Jeter. I think the reason why the Yankees had so much success, I don't think always he stuck out in the regular season as much. To me, didn't he? Played in the era Nomar Garcia-Pera, A-Rod was at short, etc. Not as much, but Derek Jeter in the playoffs, I don't think it's inarguable. He was an excellent defense. He was an excellent playoff hitter, excellent in those situations. A-Rod, I think, is 3 at shortstop. He much better in terms of stats during the regular season. Hit a lot more home runs, had a much better average, etc. But not the playoff success. Not as good in the playoffs. I think that's the only thing that keeps him higher. I have him below the Iron Man, Cal Ripken, the greatest, the most consecutive games played ever in the history of the major leagues. I don't think Cal Ripken. You're never going to see that record. Iron Man, Cal Ripken, that's superhuman. There's no such thing as a Cal Ripken. 2080, book it every season. I think Cal was as good of a player as we ever saw. Honus Wagner, probably the most famous baseball card of all time. His baseball card sold for, I think, $5 million. That's because he was one of the greatest, one of the precursors to the old MLB. All the stats are off the charts for the Pirates as well. Obviously, I can't show video black and white. But he was I think he was one of the greatest players I think we ever saw as well. Do I have There you go. All right. So let's go ahead and get that squared away. I thought I had managers. I think it's there. So we'll do that one next week, though, and get that squared away. But thank you so much for joining us here on the Rivalry Sports Podcast this week. Thank you for joining us, and you enjoy the rest of your week. Y'all have a great day.